It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
I'm Craig Price, professional bastard. Nice to meet you. Welcome to Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, Quinn Barrett joins me to discuss digital publishing. Thanks for downloading the podcast. If you downloaded us from iTunes, don't forget to leave a review or a rating. It really helps us out, and it only takes 1 second if you leave a rating. Click 5 stars. You're done. If you got us directly from the website, which is realitycheckpodcast.com, or through Facebook, you can leave a comment. We'd love to hear your opinions, your thoughts, suggestions. We would just love to hear from you. So don't be afraid to connect with us and leave messages. We'd love to hear from you. Now, we've talked about books on the show before. And we've talked about writing them, publishing them, and marketing them. But it's always been in the context of a physical book. This week, we're going to get both technical and touchy-feely, which, yes, touchy-feely is my opposite of technical. And we're going to get touchy-feely and technical on how to create and market digital books. See, I made the huge mistake of trying to get my book out only in physical form. That's all I concentrated on was an actual physical book. The book came out great. It looks good. It's nicely formatted, but it's so formatted that it can never be an ebook, or at least it cannot be an ebook unless I sink some real money into it because of the limitations of ebooks now and what I did to my book as far as formatting and with charts and with footnotes. And we'll talk about all that during the podcast. But had I known Quinn before I started my book, I'd be in much better shape than I am today as far as the book is concerned. But let's quit whining over old traditional publishing and all its limitations, and let's talk digital publishing with Quinn Barrett. Now, normally before I do an interview, I post on the internet, on my Facebook page, questions that anyone might have. And I kept on getting the same vague cries for help, anything. Just, we're going to talk about digital media. What do you want to know? And people are like, anything, because I think they feel that creating an ebook, just like creating an actual book, is this horribly complicated, difficult process that no one understands. So if you were going to create a actual book, but you also want to do an ebook as well, what do you want to keep in mind early on before you even start writing?
Well, there's a lot of things to consider. You're right to the extent and that it is easy to create an ebook. What is a little bit more involved is creating a ebook that is actually well designed and published correctly, so it has all the things that make the e-reader experience enjoyable. Like, for instance, what a lot of people do is they tend to take a Word document and then format it into a PDF of some sort and then upload it onto the Kindle platform or somewhere else. And all your words are there and the content is there, but it may not be viewable in a way that that flows the best for readers. So if there's any distractions to that, then the reading experience is not a good one. And so what you do have to look at is how you format for different platforms. For instance, what's required for Kindle is different than what's required for an aggregator like Smashwords. How you do your PDF and how you do your print on demand are different experiences. So really, you need to plan out that you really need to have 4 iterations of your book so that you're covering the overall marketplace and that people can then either buy your book in a way that is best for their reader. For instance, if somebody has a Nook, the chances of them buying an EPUB are more likely than them buying, the Kindle book. And so there's things that you do have to plan out, and you do have to consider that you have to format for a wider range than just throwing words up and calling it an ebook.
Because I found that I didn't think about ebook when I was writing my own, traditional book. And so I had issues with, pretty much the format of my book is unable to translate right at this moment to an ebook easily because there's footnotes. And footnotes are not necessarily the easiest thing. I thought you would just put a footnote in and it would pop up like a little pop-up screen. But no, sometimes it shoots you to the end of the page or to the end of the chapter, or it just throws you all over the document, and so it can be a little distracting having footnotes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, footnotes is not something that has really been dealt with very well. Now, we have to keep in mind that the formatting of ebooks is really still kind of, I wouldn't say infancy, but I would say toddlers. Things are changing all the time. I say this in my own Blog Talk Radio show. I talk about how platforms are currently being developed so to make the task of publishing even easithere. But, and take out some of the guesswork. Like, we were just talking in the last question, as I was saying, there are a couple little tricks that you have to do on Kindle in order to make that, that index work right. And I don't mean an index by, the index that we think of in a nonfiction book at the back of the book. I'm talking about the index that allows you to kind of see what your progress is in the book, or to go all the way to the end, or, have that, kind of touch and click interface. And so as things begin to change, as you're talking about, and by the way, you're in very good company. There's a lot of people who really don't understand all the little, ins and outs of how to, properly format and publish their digital book. And so a lot of people are still really holding on, grasping at straws to, wanting to do it the old way, or they take just an interim step by doing a PDF book. So there's a lot of learning and changes that need to be made across the board, and those things will happen slowly. And the reason it will get easier in time is because we already have a bunch of technologists on the case who are trying to figure out, how do I accomplish these things? Like, how do I address people like, Quinn Price, who needs footnotes in their book in a way that makes sense, that's not going to, throw my reader to the back of the chapter and then I have to find my way back, those type of things. So as technology improves in this space, it will be easier for all of us to publish and create ebooks in a better way.
And for those of you listening, I'm here with Quinn Barrett. She has her own Blog Talk radio show called Wise Bear Books, because that is your company, Wise Bear's Books, all things digital media. And it really is something that you've got to think about ahead. What are some of the major mistakes that people make when they start that process of taking a Word document or their book? Because I know with my book, it's not only got footnotes, but it's also got special formatting. We spent a lot of time to make it look like a beautiful book. Unfortunately, that does not translate. So that was a huge mistake, was not even thinking about an ebook format. But when people start making that conversion, what is one of the bigger mistakes that they make?
Well, I think what you just said is that you're trying to make it a beautiful book. And I have customers all the time who talk about page counts. And what you have to shift your mind in with, digital books is there are no pages. It's always about the words. And because it's ultimately the e-reader and the reader who controls, how many pages that's going to be, what it's going to look like. So what happens when you create an ebook is, instead of trying to create that beautiful book, you have to just understand that all you're really doing is putting in tags so that the HTML tags, so that when somebody's reading it, they can say, I want my text to be Times Roman versus Georgia versus Radana, or whatever the e-reader allows. We aren't really formatting the books. The e-reader's formatting the books, just in the same way you look at a website. You can put in some graphics on a website, right, that are, that are not controlled by the HTML. They're static vector, graphics. And those always stay the same. You can put static images into ebooks as well, but not with the words. The words are all controlled by the code. And so I just tried to explain this to a customer just last week who had a Rush anthology project, which was just a nightmare, and they just could not get past this idea of how many pages it was going to be. I'm like, it's not going to be any pages. It's going to be words. It's like being in space. There's no up and down anymore. And, they just, finally by the end of the project, they were starting to get it. But it's just shifting that mindset that you are just letting the technology kind of dictate what it's going to look like, and not really trying to control the ultimate look and feel of what it is. The best we can do as formatters is know that all the paragraph tags are in place, all the page, breaks are in place, and that we've formatted it in a way, in the cleanest possible way, so that as readers read it, they're getting the content without distraction as they're reading, and that becomes a really enjoyable user experience for the reader.
Well, you just brought up something that kind of broke my brain a little bit when you were talking about how it isn't about pages, but yet you were talking about you have to make sure the page breaks are in there. Can you elaborate on that a little more? Because if there's literally no pages because it is an ebook, like so where would page breaks come in? Is that just the end of chapters?
Yes, correct. And and that is a little problem because still in the code they call it a page break, but it's really not a page break. It's just saying where it's like a section break, a chapter break. It gives the illusion that there's a page there, but it's not. It's like a forced movement to like go to another web page, that type of thing. Because, we call them web pages, but they're not really pages because they can go on indefinitely forever. If you want it to be. I mean, one page could be over 100,000 words. I don't know why you would do that, but theoretically you could. So, yeah, some of the vernacular hasn't really caught up. So we call them page breaks, but it's really just to a demarcation that says, you're done here, we're going to the next part. And
it seems to, I'm not very familiar with ebooks. My wife loves them. And she has a Kindle Fire. So she really likes the Kindle format, and I guess the Kindle Fire has taken it up a step from. They actually use footnotes properly because she kind of showed me. But then you've got Nooks and you've got all these other things. Is there a standard format, or you were talking about you need to have 4 iterations of it?
Well, that's a kind of a sales and marketing thing. There's lots of different formats, but the main 2 formats for ebooks specifically are Kindle format, which is a native PRC file. And a lot of people call it a Mobi, but Mobi is the company that creates the conversion process so that allows you to go up on Kindle. So a lot of times they think of it as Mobi, but it's really Mobi/PRC/Mobi. And then there's the EPUB format, which is basically what everybody else pretty much uses. Now, think of it this way, years ago, the Microsoft-Apple rivalry, where, Apple had this kind of proprietary closed-end system and they didn't share anything. Well, that's kind of what Kindle is today, whereas the EPUB format is like Microsoft back then, where, I wouldn't say it was open source, but, you had a lot more flexibility with the file. You could read it on a lot of different machines. You didn't have to just be on an Apple or a Macintosh to access their information. And that's kind of what the distinction I draw between, Kindle and EPUB. Now, I do like Kindle a lot, but because of my business, I do work with a lot of EPUB formats and a lot of, readers that are, basically use the EPUB format. And I have to say, over time, as a format, I do actually have to give a slight edge to EPUBs. And I think as much as I really don't necessarily want to, praise Apple, they get enough praise for all of their stuff. I work mostly on PC platforms, but I have to say that the iBooks on Apple is pretty darn good. And they do things in a more intuitive way than I believe that Kindle does at this point. But that's not to disparage anybody who's a Kindle owner. You're going to love either experience, but they both have things about them that I just think the user interface on the EPUB format through the iBooks and through Nook also. By the way, I think Barnes & Noble, who although is struggling in stuff to stay relevant in this, they make really good products. And it's just too bad that they don't have that first mover status because they really have a fine e-reader that anybody who has that should be, don't feel like you're missing out on anything. They really do have good stuff.
Well, it sounds like Kindle is like the iTunes of books, where that is the format. That is the marketplace you want to be in first. You definitely want to be on Kindle because it's got the largest distribution. Now, when you're when you do the conversions, you can hire somebody out. I would always just assume that's something you should do unless you're a coder yourself. But once you have it coded, because you should probably, from what I'm understanding, don't get too pretty with your book yet. Wait until you've finished writing the book. Then you can convert it into these other situations. Then you can go to your book and start making it pretty for your physical copy.
That's right.
So you wrote a book called Digital Publishing Profits, 10 Strategies to Positively Impact Your Bottom Line Marketing and Selling of eBooks, because I think that's the key, because I think we've written the book, we're going to get it converted, but then, like everyone else who owns a book, how are you going to get people to see it? And I would assume with eBooks flooding the marketplace, it's really difficult to be even found.
Well, it is and it's not. I get a lot of visibility because I'm very active in social media, and one of the chapters in my book, chapter 4, is leave no stone unturned marketing, market early and often. I like to think that, and Guy Kawasaki talks about it in his latest book, that's a Kindle bestseller, that we have to stop thinking of books as being published. And we really need to think of it as almost software development, where there's release dates, and those release dates get updated whenever there needs to be, a change or, some new information that comes into place. And so I think that, there's no expiration date on, bookshelves. And so that we need to be always active in promoting whatever books we have. Even if we wrote a book, this isn't me, of course, but 10 years ago, what I'm finding is I have a couple of clients who have written bestsellers back in the 80s and 90s who now want to digitize their books and find a new audience for those books. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. There's no reason not to. And the problem that they're having, though, in doing that is that when those books were created, nobody kept, a word processed, a copy of it or a digitized format of it. So it's fairly labor intensive to go and take that information and scan it in, use an OCR technology to digitize it, and then have to relay it all out and proof it now because you may have some glitches in there. So as far as with my book, in the marketing, can I tell you just real quick how the idea of it came about?
Sure.
Okay, and I'm sorry I'm going off track a little bit here, but
that's what we do here. Oh no, go as far off the track as you want. Okay.
Well, the reason I picked a kind of a bold title for it, and I wanted to really stand out to people. But the real impetus for me writing it was I had so many associates and friends come to me, and I don't know with you, but one of the questions I always get is, how did you do it, and why did you do it, and how did you do it? These broad questions. And so and then I wasn't trying to go out and help people format and convert and market their books. People just came to me organically, and so I got tired of, people asking me so many questions of, well, how about this and how about this? I'm like, I'm just going to write it all down. And here's the book. And, I give out a lot of free PDF copies to people, but, for somebody who wants on their e-reader or something like that, you can go ahead and buy it. And it's all right there. So what's really important for my readers and my audience to know up front is I'm not suggesting that if you read this book, your book will become a bestseller. What I'm saying is, if you don't do anything, you don't have a chance of selling anything. And I also feel like it's really important to clarify that between the highest echelons of, the top 1-2% of, household best-selling authors and the bottom rung of creative writers who just write for the love of it, and I don't mean to say that people write for the love of it on the bottom rung. I just realized that. Should have edited that.
Oh, don't worry. They're not selling books, so they're at home going, I completely understand.
Is the rest of us. And there's a lot of people who don't have the distinction of being able to say I'm a best-selling author, who are very profitable writers, who just turn out books and build their audience and have a very loyal, dedicated following of readers who are always waiting for the next book. And so sometimes we get caught up in the trap of thinking that we haven't measured up if we don't have the status of being bestsellers. No, there's a lot of authors out there, myself included, who make money because they see their book as a business and they do things in a business way. So this book to me is kind of a business development 101 for authors. My background comes from business development and technology. I used to teach a course in the LA Community College system called Birthing Your Business. It was really, business development 101 for women. And I use a lot of the ideas from that curriculum into this book, but adapting it for, writers and authors. So, I strongly believe if you don't change your mindset and understand that your book is a product and part of the creative process is not just the writing and creation of that, but it's also the creation of your business, then I think that you're going to have a hard time really impacting your bottom line. Let's not worry about being bestsellers yet. Let's worry about let the book pay for itself. Let's get to profitability before we start, swinging for the fences here. There's nothing wrong with hitting a few singles and doubles along your way to success.
Yeah, let's be a seller before you're a bestseller.
Right.
And people ask me, because, my favorite thing is when people come up to me and go, oh, you wrote a book, you must be smart. And it's like, well, Snooki's got a book, Paris Hilton's got a book. It's not as difficult as you think it is. But it's one of those situations where you have to ask them, well, what are you going to use your book for? Are you using it are you going to try to make money off the book directly? Like the only thing you want to do is sell thousands of books. You're going to have a different strategy than like myself, who I speak for a living, and I don't make money from a large amount of books per se. I actually use the books as like very expensive business cards. I give them to clients and potential clients and meeting planners, and they get to see what I'm about and what I talk about in my topic and my expertise, and that helps them hire me. So I don't really worry about selling books. I worry about getting books in people's hands. So it all depends on what kind of end result you're looking for with a book.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're at this long enough, the books do can be seen as a revenue stream on their own. But initially, when you're starting out, you really have to see your book as, a goal towards something else. And that's difficult, particularly for fiction writers. Most fiction writers can't quit their day job. And but I do think that there is money to be made in fiction. I do think that now more than ever, because of digital publishing, it doesn't take as much. It's really all you're really out is your time. Now, one of the things you said earlier, you were talking about, hiring somebody to do that. And I personally believe there's another chapter I have in here. I call it "Don't Step Over Dollars to Pinch Pennies." If you don't know what you're doing, you do need to hire somebody. What you do need to be smart about is how much you're going to pay somebody to do it. There are people out there, just straight boiler room conversion houses that will charge you as little as $50 to do that. I tend to say, buyer beware on that. But the same group that will charge you $5,000, I tend to say probably you can find something in between. And so it's really important that you really research out who you're dealing with and kind of hit the middle ground and just, make good judgments about the dollars that you're going to spend in order to do that. But getting back to the profitability issue in terms of, okay, what's a fiction author going to do and how are they going to make money? Do they have a business attached to it? Well, my response to that is yes, I think you do. What I see that in successful fiction authors that are out there making money that aren't household names is because they're doing kind of like what you've talked about, and that is they parlay their writing experience into other things like speaking, like teaching, other, kind of tangential business opportunities from that. And so the book is just one element of it. There's a lot of things that go into a book. Do you have a preview trailer? Do you have a website? Do you have, all these other things that will make, have you made an audio version of the book? There are things around that. There's a lot of money to be made in digital publishing, whether you're in the fiction business or nonfiction business. It happens to be one of the bright spots in an otherwise, still struggling economy. So there's a lot of money on the table to be made. Now, let me clarify one thing, because I know in our pre-show interview that we did, we are completely on the same page. I am a big believer in internet marketing. I am not a believer in internet marketers, and there is a distinction. And unfortunately, they use the same words, just in a slightly different way. But there is a difference. I tend to believe that if you see a landing page with some offer that sounds too good to pass up on, I would be wary of that. And the only way I would ever look at something that somebody's offering that way is that if they do give you a 30, 60-day money-back guarantee, and if you want to look at it and then realize what you're in for and get rid of it. The truth of the matter is that good businesses take time to mature and develop. They just do. And for those people who, for whatever reason, they were predestined, or, they just were in the right place at the right time, who, hit it out of the park on their first try, that is the exception, not the rule. So don't be discouraged if that doesn't happen for you. There's a lot to be done, and so it's our job as authors to figure out, okay, what do I do now? How do I monetize this? Well, I say, don't go and do what everybody else is doing. There's certain things you can do that are similar, but if you aren't figuring out a way to distinguish yourself, it's the same way of getting in. I have a son that's about to go to college, and he's a straight A student, and he's a great kid. But the chances of him getting into a Harvard or something like that, even with I think when he ends up, if he gets all straight A's the rest of his school, he'll have like a 4.4, 4.5, something ridiculous like that. But, that still doesn't distinguish him at the elite level, because they expect everybody to have that. So you have to do something to set yourself apart from everybody else. And then you have to keep doing it over and over again until enough people begin to, remember your name.
And I think a lot of the times the only success stories we hear are the meteoric ones. I believe there's a 17-year-old girl who writes vampire ebooks who's made hundreds of thousands of dollars just by doing that. But that's the rarity. But there are lots of people who make a consistent income. It's not millions of dollars. It may not even be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's good enough where it's worth the while. One of the questions I wanted to get into, because I've started to see this in the evolution of ebooks, is the interactivity of that. What has your experience been with people inserting videos and links and things like that, and PDFs and outside sources into their ebooks? Well,
I actually have a very I find this very interesting, and I see this as, when we talked earlier about kind of the next level. I know that there are companies out there, there's one company called Atavist, which I'm on their waiting list. They're working on a beta version of their software. Now, I think what they're talking about is, are you familiar with the WordPress platform?
Absolutely. We just have this year have a brand new Reality Check podcast WordPress site. So please make sure that you visit it. If you've just been to the feed, go see the site. It's very nice now. But yes, I'm very familiar with WordPress.
Okay, so when blogging first started, it started off with blogger.com, and that then got absorbed by Google eventually and stuff. And now that really had a big impact on web development, because how we created websites all changed. We didn't have to do HTML anymore, and then WordPress has really kind of morphed into what we call a CMS, a content management system. Sure, it can be a blog, but it can be so much more than that. And I think that these type of CMS systems have inspired people to kind of create platforms that I think will then be the future of digital publishing. When we have those type of platforms, we're going to be able to embed things like, visuals, clips, video clips. Your audiobook could be, built seamlessly into that type of user experience along with it. That's my belief, and I think that the difference is if you talk to people who in traditional publishing houses are trying to play catch up to the technology, they still don't get that part of it, and that's why I think ultimately digital publishing is going to be taken over by technologists. It reminds me of, the .com days, the boom of that, when we were all out there trying to figure out, how are we going to create the next, eBay or, something like that. That's what I think is happening now. So everything you're talking about that makes it the interactive experience, you can put all that in and then some. Right now, can we do that now? No, you can do it through a website. The problem is with the website is everything's moving towards tablets and mobile devices. I can speak to this personally because I have a business since 1998. It was either 96 or 98. I always get confused. A long time. I've had a business where we do IT development, internet development, and also on-site tech support for a lot of people in the entertainment industry. One of the things that we've noticed in a trend is that the tech support business is changing a lot because they don't need as much tech support because people are, instead of having 2 or 3 computers in a home, like say 1 computer, 2 laptops, those laptops and computers are being replaced by tablets. Or a lot of people just use their iPhone or, Samsung Galaxy or Android device. And so with that all changing, that is just telling you the movement is going to be towards how we develop will be for mobile computing on tablets and iPhones. That will allow us, as we make those changes and upgrades, to begin to infuse it with these things that you're talking about. And so it's going to be really exciting to see in the next 5 to 10 years what's going to happen. I remember years ago talking about that we would see these, what back then was called server-based applications. Do you even know what a server-based application is, by the way, Craig?
I am familiar with them, but it's been a while since I've actually had to deal with them directly.
Well, it's what we call the cloud now.
Yeah.
We came up with a friendly name for it, but it was the same thing, that ultimately everything would move so that you didn't have to back up as much. You didn't have to, use your flash drive, like the flash drives that we used to, use for backup and stuff. It's like people hardly ever used those before, which, by the way, I'm going to say, put on my tech support hat and say, everybody needs to be backing up, especially authors who are
and if you've been spending your life's work in trying to put everything you believe and all your philosophies and all your insight into 200 pages, you don't want to put it on someplace where the cat chews on a wire and your masterpiece is gone.
Right, exactly. And don't always trust everything in the cloud. You should really have, I use, cloud computing to save a lot of stuff, but I also have an external hard drive, which is really great. They're really small, just a terabyte drive that I plug into my USB port, back everything up. I've got all my writing. Don't have to worry about it. I've got it on 2 computers. I got it in the cloud, and I got it on an external drive. I'm covered. So, you do have to be careful about things like that. But anyway, that was a roundabout version of saying yes. I think all those things that you're talking about, all those little value-added things, will be added, but I think it's probably going to take several years until the technology is developed to really do that seamlessly.
All right. Well, before I let you go, you at Wise Bear have a Digital Book Awards contest, and can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, it all started because I was actually thinking about entering my book into an award contest, and I was looking around for a digital competition, and I really couldn't find any. And the couple that I did, they only took a small portion of digital book entries. I think they were afraid of being deluged with more than they could handle. And I thought, this is a part that the independent community really isn't getting. They're really still holding on to the past. A lot of people still prefer to hold a book, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think printed books are beautiful form. But I decided, let me research this out. I knew that I had a skill set that I could create something like this if it made sense. And so I did a lot of research, and I started, it took me about 6 months to build the site and put a team together to do it. And we opened up the first day on September, I think, just after Labor Day. And we've gotten a very good response. And we're not doing an extraordinary amount of marketing because this first year we're trying to learn from it and figure things out. But I have to say I'm really impressed with the quality and the caliber of entries that we are getting. And this has really been a tremendous learning experience. But like all things, they take, several years to develop and really hit their stride in doing it right. But we're really proud of what we're doing because we're really trying to advocate for the digital community. And by doing this, we feel like we're really, and I don't mean this in a condescending way at all, but really educating authors on what a good ebook experience is. So
what are the submit dates? Give me the dates, because you have to submit by a certain amount of time.
We have an early bird registration period that goes to February 28th, and then after that we go to a full price, and the deadline for entry is on the April 30th. And you can get all the information you want about that at wisebearbooks.com/awards. There's several pages that have all the entry guidelines. Everything is online. You don't have to mail anything in. You just upload your book, send it to us with your completed form, and we go from there. And we offer a free book review as part of that, interim, because it is a long, protracted process and stuff. And like I said, our goal is really just to highlight the best in digital publishing and really let people know there's really good books in the independent community.
Well, if people want to know more about you, they can go to wisebearsbooks.com. You also can listen to you at Blog Talk Radio on Wise Bear Books, all things digital media. Quinn, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks very much.
Thanks to Quinn for joining me. Remember to go and enter your digital book to the Wise Bear Digital Book Awards from now until April 30th, 2013, and get a free book review with it, wisebearbooks.com. You can also catch our podcast, Reality Check, on Twitter at RealityCheckPod. You can follow the guest list there. Email me, Craig, at speakercraigprice.com with any reality-based issues. We'll see you next week.